Not too far into the body, it's time to stuff the arms. They're a little awkward to get into because they are so narrow, and so it's a good time to stop and stuff them before things start to close down too much here at the top. Well, the bottom, I suppose, of the gnome. So I really suggest that you use a pencil with an eraser on the end. The eraser acts as a grip, and rather than sliding through the stuffing, we'll kind of grab onto the stuffing and push it. So definitely start with a very small amount. You don't want to overstuff them or they will become very stiff and they won't bend well. So then just take your pencil and you can reach in really nicely when the gnome is this open. And so one of the things I would suggest you think about is whether you want your Gnoddy to have sort of upright arms or arms that you can bend down. So what I did in the difference here is I stuffed it roughly even all the way through the upper body, whereas here I stuffed the arms and the body, but I actually went with my finger and my thumb here and I kind of made a shoulder joint by making it empty in that shoulder. Well, not quite empty, but I pulled almost all of the stuffing out by kind of mushing it around. And you don't have to decide that now, but when you go to stuff the body, you do need to make that take that into consideration. Do you want these up or do you want them down? This Gnoddy I actually sewed, so you can see I sewed it right here and a little bit along the upper arm, and then this one spot here on the hand, and then I just sewed this whole one down because I wanted to show in the book how you could really change the look of the gnome just by changing the arm position. You can do a lot with shaping from the outside with the fingers that aren't actively stuffing. Especially with really narrow places, it's a good idea to start with less stuffing than maybe you think you're going to need, and you just go slowly. It's difficult to get it back out, and so you don't want to pack it so tight in there that it's going to be really difficult for you to try to get out of there. So just stuff both arms up to about the shoulder joint, and then you can go on with your decreases and work the rest of the gnome as normal. I will link in the video the regular stuffing advice that I give for gnomes. All right, there we go, bit by bit. Gnoddy's coming into focus. We'll get there in the end. I will say the moment you start to stuff beyond the sleeves, Gnoddy really starts to look good. There's something about this design that looks a bit dodgy till you do start stuffing. I wanted to just say that Gnoddy is a pattern that really does benefit from a steam blocking. If you don't want to do a wet blocking, that's totally fine. If you're going to wet block, obviously wet block before you stuff the sleeves. But I think even just a steaming will help her always settle in. I find that sometimes the hem of the sweater wants to flip up a bit and the ear flaps can be a bit unruly, although maybe you will like that. So do consider whether or not a steam will help her settle into herself and just come to her full gorgeousness. And don't be surprised if the second you stuff, it starts to really look adorable. Let's assemble Gnoddy so that we can finish. I think Gnoddy's assembly video might be the fastest one I ever make. There's so little left to do. All we need to do with Gnoddy is attach the beard and the nose, and then we're done. It's a nice fast process. So we're going to flip the brim up, and we're going to be sewing the beard centered on the front here, up here under the top of the flap, top of the brim. So roughly there, and then we will sew the nose on, and then we get a little bit of a drape. Not a lot of a drape with this hat. The brim is not a very deep brim, but that is okay. I think it's just enough. We're going to thread the needle, which I do by folding the yarn over, pinching it, and then putting the eye right above that pinched spot, and as I open up my pinch, it just naturally pushes it up and in. All right, so it's possible that what we sew may be a little visible depending on how the hat ends up lying. So make sure to use the bumps on the garter section of the fringe beard here in order to hide your stitches. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go under a leg of or two legs of a stitch here at the corner, and then through the corner of the beard. And I always like to do that at least twice. usually 4 times if it's going to be a toy. So that's twice because it won't be a toy. And then I'm going to actually come underneath again and then start going across the hat. Now, before I get too far, I want to put the brim back down and make sure that I am truly centered, and that if I have started in the wrong place, this is a good time to know it. So let's just have a look, and that does look good. So now I can use the bumps to hide things. So for instance, if I go down here and come up under the bump, that's one way to hide it. And then if I also come down before the bump, but what I'm doing is rather than coming down right where I came up, if I go down a little bit lower, then I can move over. Need to make sure that I'm scooping both beard and body. Sometimes it's really easy just to only grab the beard. So make sure you're grabbing some of the body. So wherever you come up, don't come back down in that same spot. Go either up or down a little and just slowly move your way across, securing that beard down. Obviously, if yours is a decoration, you don't necessarily need to go every single stitch. You could start skipping a little bit and just get it attached enough that it's going to stay in place on a shelf or underneath a toadstool or on your front porch. I think Gnoddy would be a magnificent gnome made in a really bulky yarn and then loaded up with something nice and heavy and then greeting people around Christmas time on your doorstep. A little front porch Gnoddy. Oh, now that I've said that out loud, I think there's a bulky Gnoddy in my future. All right, so I've sewn it all the way across. I'm going to double check that it's centered, looking good. That's nice. So now I'm just going to secure my end. I'm going to come down over here and I'm going to come over here underneath sort of the center of the beard, and I will just tie a little knot there and then hide the end in my sweater. I will say right now in this video, if you are not part of the knit along that I filmed this for, I am assuming that Gnoddy is not going to be someone's first gnome, and so I have not done as much in terms of the videos, in terms of like really step by step showing you a lot of the details that I show in a lot of my other videos. But I am going to list in the description below a lot of those basic videos where I've covered a lot of those things, like how to block a gnome, how to attach beards. I'm going to do another beard attachment video. I'm going to do a video on how to stuff gnomes, all those sorts of things, where I do go in a lot more detail for people where it might be your first gnome. So that will be linked below. Okay, so now that I've buried the end, I'm going to snip it off. And now we're going to do the nose. And the nose in the book is always sort of done the same for these bigger, rounder noses. And by that, I mean, I like to secure it sort of top, middle, or middle, and then top, and then bottom, basically. We always start at the middle because that's where we start, because that's where the end is coming out, right? It's coming out midway. So what you can do is just find the center of your beard, boop, and then see if you like it. Oh, she looks really good with this one, with those flying up like that, doesn't she, this one? All right, so I'm gonna go along the nose, kind of about 2 stitches wide, and then I'm gonna go back through the beard again, and I can do that again, and that's gonna provide a really stable attachment in the center. Then I'll tighten that up. And then I want to go and I want to attach that nose a little higher and a little lower. So to do a little higher, I'm going to roll the nose this way. I'm going to go through the top of the beard, just like that. And then I'll go through the nose. I don't want to go too high up because I don't want this to be visible, but I do want it to be sort of wide enough that it's going to be a nice stabilizing thing. Go back through the beard, right at the top here. I can go right back through the nose. And then when I tighten that up, it should pull it up. I'm losing my yarn there. Should pull that up nice and Oh, look at that. All right, now we want to bring our yarn down to the bottom. So I'm just going to go underneath the nose, come out here. And again, I'm going to use my thumb to roll it up. And I'm going to lose my yarn. Apparently, every video I have to lose my yarn minimum of one time. All right, so I obviously can't secure it to the fringe, but I can secure it down here. So I'm going to go through that. And then I'll go through the nose, beard, nose. And now I'll tighten that up. Nice and secure. If this is going to be a toy, I would probably also secure it to the left and to the right, just so that it's nice and firmly on there. Anything that's an appendage is something your kid's going to end up carrying it by, and we don't want the nose to come off. Because I feel like as soon as you put a nose on a gnome, it's truly a being with its own independent personality. So now to get rid of the end, I'm going to go underneath the beard, and I'm just going to tie a knot the same way I did for the beard itself. I am really losing my end. I thought I had more than enough set aside in terms of length, but I'm a little tense today, and I'm not always doing a great job of setting myself up for success as I'm doing this. All right, so I've tied a knot and just plunge that through the sweater, come out anywhere, and pull that tight and just snip it. It's not much to snip, but I do need to snip it. So there is our Gnoddy. Lots of fun to be had with this gnome. If you are interested in playing around with her, there are so many things to do. I'm not going to take the time to list them all, but I do usually leave this beard with the loops as loops, but you could come along and before you attach it, I would do this, and I would at the same point, you could snip it across. If you have a plied yarn, you could separate the plies sort of painstakingly bit by bit with a needle tip, or you get like a pet brush or something like that and fluff it up. If you try this with a textured yarn, it is an awful lot of fun. I really enjoy using boucle yarns or mohair yarns or other things for the beard. The beard texture is really fun in this one. So I hope that you've enjoyed making Gnoddy. I hope that the videos along the way helped you and that you tag me when you post. Gnoddy, I would think, is one of my top 5 favorite gnomes. I can't go, maybe top 3. I don't know. It's so hard. I really enjoy adding stripes. When I add stripes, I do, in order to get an equal number of stripes, I have to add a little bit to the body. You can see in the book where this picture is, I list exactly what I've done to get the right stitch count here. And the reason I've gone with manual striping rather than self-striping yarn is so that the sleeve stripes could be identical, because obviously the circumference of the sleeves is different than the circumference of the body, and you would probably end up with almost all of one sleeve being one color rather than striped. So a little manual striping is what I've done here. So this is the DK, this is the fingering weight version. This is the first one I've done with variegated yarn. I knew that variegated yarn would be fun in a little gnome sweater, and so I wanted to show that off. So now I've done Gnoddy in a single yarn, applied yarn, a DK weight yarn that's woolen spun, and now my next thing is to do her, I guess, in a bulky weight. Happy gnoming and have a great time.